guys? My name is Brandon Collier, and I am the host and founder of the Brothers of Merit podcast. This is our second show, and I'm ready to talk about some solid material to help you guys in what can sometimes seem to be, daily issues. For starts, Happy New Year. It's 2019. I can't believe that. I'm looking forward to this year and definitely what's in store for Brothers of Merit, and I hope you guys are as well. I think it's going to be a great 2019, and we have a lot in store for you all. It's been a long time coming creating this podcast and just getting all the ends to meet and social media platforms, and it's just been a lot. So I'm pretty stoked to finally put out this material and everything that I've worked on. So before we begin, just to remind everyone that you can head over and check out our website. It is www.brothersofmerit.com. On it has links to all of our social media platforms, as well as the blog, which basically is updated every time that I do something, whether it's, podcast or something new that's coming out. So just give that a once over and see what's up. And if you can, give us any information, some feedback, engage with us, some comments, find us on the Facebook page, and just become connected with the podcast. We are officially now on every platform, whether that's Apple, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, Castbox, all those. So just check us out, see what we're about, and I think you'll enjoy everything that we speak of. So today's topic that I wanted to discuss was overcoming fears and disregarding the doubters. I mentioned this to you guys last week. The reason I started the show off with this topic is because I personally had to overcome it in order to create this show. And not just the show, but obviously other hurdles in life. This really hit home as to one of the reasons what was holding me back from doing it. We'll discuss further on in this episode why that was kind of the issue and what aspects in regards to overcoming the fear of creating this show were present. So let's get into the material and dig in. So let's start with why is it important to learn or master overcoming a fear? That's something that I thought of. And let's begin with what is a fear. So the definition, I looked it up all over the internet. And the one that I came down to that seemed to be the not generic, but the most general across the board was it's an unpleasant emotion or thought that you have when you're frightened or worried. So I'm gonna read that one again. An unpleasant emotion or thought that you have when you're frightened or worried. I think that's pretty spot on because fear is not the physical action or the issue that you fear. I mean, you can't change that. For instance, a fear of flying. Flying is just flying. You can't change that. So the fear is not, it's the same whatever airline you choose, whether you fly, any way you look at it. However, the unpleasant emotion you have because you're worried or scared to actually fly is the real fear. So that's why I think that's pretty spot on. So the fear is just what's attached to that action. So it's the mental and emotional association that you have with it. So I think that's pretty important, and that's why I picked that definition because it seemed to be that way across the board. Another part is fear is reoccurring and it's relentless. So I say reoccurring because you always have to face the fear, whatever it may be. So once it is a fear, it will always be a fear. You'll always remember it as a fear, even if you do overcome it. Your internal beliefs and your internal thoughts will always remember it as a fear. Whether you overcome it or not, it's there. But, it's how you learn to overcome it that will allow the fear to then be subtle and not an issue. So it's there, it's present, it always will be. However, the degree of what you believe that fear is, that's based upon how you overcome it. I also said relentless, and the reason I said that is because it doesn't matter who you are as a man, physically or mentally or emotionally, if you're big, strong, manly dude, that has nothing to do with this. Some of the most manly guys that I know still fear things. I mean, it's healthy to fear something, but you have to overcome that fear, have guardrails in place. And when I say guardrails, I mean those are basically lines in the sand that you draw that when you feel fearful or something, whether it's personal or it's, something you want to stay away from, you have guardrails in place to keep you focused and away from those bad thoughts or that fear. So that's what I mean by guardrails. And in relentless, what I was saying is unless you can learn to overcome it, it's still a fear. So no matter who you think you are, how manly you think you are, or mentally or physically tough, it does not matter. The fear is still going to bother you inside, and people can't see that. And that's what you're battling internally. So another part was this, the fear, it ultimately affects you as a man. I mean, we already can't afford as men just another battle with our internal strength. There's so much in today's world, going against us. Let's give a few examples. Alcohol. Alcoholism is huge, and a lot of men resort to alcohol because some of the things that they're going, against in life. We all know that. We all know someone that has struggled with alcohol. Another part is lust, and they mention that in the Bible. And lust is something we battle with constantly because of what's in our face with social media platforms. Social media platforms can be awesome, but they can also be the devil. They can be Satan. They're constantly in your face, just projecting these images of, since we're men, they're projecting these images of women that are unrealistic, but they appeal to the masculine eye. So they throw that out there, and then the lust, of course, for you, even though it's a fake facade of what love is, the lust inside of you as a man starts to take over. So we have that going against us. Obviously, drugs. I mean, drugs are everywhere in any form, any shape that you can get them. So another, pornography, adultery, these are all examples of what we already have going against us as men. So we don't need fear affecting us as well on top of all the things we deal with in our daily lives with that. So when you add that, it also can cause insecurities. Even though we want to be masculine, we want to be men, we still all have our insecurities. So it affects, how you think, how you act, and then how you carry out your future battles internally with the same or a different issue. So if you can overcome fear on one of the strongest issues that you have, then you can definitely overcome your fear on a minor issue. But the best and most reassuring about this entire thing is that God is always with you. So, I wanted to, take a look at a Bible verse that I think has been perfect and is perfect for this entire episode, and that is Joshua 1:9. And basically, that's what it says: do not be afraid and do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And that, to me, is key in anything we talk about and anything we do in life, not just this podcast episode that we're talking, and not just the further episodes that we conduct down the line. It's paramount for you to remember that God is always with you. He's the only one that you should be worried about what he thinks or what he says. And if you think you're going in this battle alone to overcome a fear, you're wrong. God is with you, and that's who you really need. Obviously, we would all like to have our significant others or our families or our closest friends there with us as we try to overcome this fear. Who you need is God. He will guide you through all of this. And I promise you that. And some of you have already gone through things in your life, and you can agree with me when I say that God is who you need. So on that note, I want to start talking about how you can disregard the doubters. And what I mean by that, when I say disregard the doubters, it's really not worrying about what other people think. And in today's world, that is so hard to try to defeat because you are constantly dealing with somebody saying, seeing, or viewing you because everything is all over the internet, on social media platforms. You can talk to somebody at the blink of an eye in 20 different ways if you want to. So I want to start by saying this. As I told you, there will always, always, always be others who doubt you and say things about you. There's no getting around that. That is life in general. It doesn't matter what you do, you can't prevent that. If you become successful, you're going to have someone there that doubts your success and downplays it. That you didn't work to get that, or they think they know your backstory when they probably don't. Another part would be if you're in the workplace, in the work setting, if you make a decision, regardless of even if you're one of the best bosses out there and all your subordinates like you, there's always going to be somebody that has something to say. Even if it's the right decision and if it's the wrong decision, it doesn't matter the decision, someone's going to have something to say. Heck, even if you're unsuccessful, someone's going to have something to say about it. So you just got to remember that when you're trying to go about and think, why does this person always have something to say? Or when I do this, I wonder what so and so is going to say, or anybody's going to say for that matter. And you can't worry about that. It's always going to happen, it's always going to be there. So we'll use this podcast for an example. When you want to talk about God and faith in the fire service, that typically doesn't happen. In the fire service, you're typically surrounded by alpha, males and females that love to go to work, do their jobs, and they're tough. It's a very hard-nosed community. It's similar to, I'm in the military as well, and it's similar to the same exact thing. We don't talk about it a lot. You don't mention it a lot. I don't want to say it's the elephant in the room. I guess that would be the right way to put it, but in a way it is. It's just people know, like for instance, the guys that I work with, people know that I'm faithful. They know I believe in God, I'm a Christian, but it never gets brought up. It's typically one of those things that we just don't talk about, but they know it. That doesn't mean that they change who they are. That doesn't mean they change the slang terms or the curse words or anything that they say. They don't have to. Because I don't put off that vibe and I don't say things to them. We are all our own men. And just because I'm faithful and I believe in God as my higher power and all, doesn't mean that I look down upon you if you don't or if you do. And anyone listening to this, you shouldn't do that either. You shouldn't do that to anyone. That's not why we're here. We're followers of God or whoever you choose to be your higher power, and we're there to walk with them. And we're there to walk with others. So when I did this podcast, my biggest worry is what were guys going to say, really at my workplace, because I'm in a job that typically you want to be and seem to be as manly as you possibly can. What would somebody or many people have to say when they hear me making a podcast about, walking with God and being a man, of faith? And that stalled me for a little bit because I didn't want them to think that because I'm creating this podcast and I'm, a follower of the Lord, that I was any less of a firefighter. So it ultimately came down to the point where I had to go through everything that I'm telling you, I had to do myself. And that's why I chose to do this podcast first, because it meant a lot to me. What I came to realize is it doesn't matter what I do, they're going to have something to say. Somebody in that 1,000 people is going to have something to say about it or make fun of it or whatever, but why should I care? And I don't. And that's why I'm here making this podcast, because in the end of the day, I'm focused on my walk with God and bettering any other man that wants to walk with God as well. That's what it comes down to. So you have to focus then on who actually cares. And it needs to be God. God always cares about you. He loves you, and He always has, always will. It doesn't matter what your sins are, what you think your sins are or were or have been in the past. He loves you. He died for you. And you need to take that to heart. You need to worry about and focus on yourself. You also need true supporters. And when I say true supporters, I'm talking like your direct families and friends. And I know there's always exceptions to that. Trust me, I get it. Not everyone has the perfect lined up, father and mother relationship. And that's life. And we all get it. And that's why we're here doing this, because hopefully one day you can better your relationship with your parents or whoever the significant other or, direct family member is by having the strength to overcome that fear. And that's why we're doing this. Another one would be your audience. And that's, in essence, that's you guys. You guys are my audience. And that's another reason why I'm doing this, is so you guys can learn and work on overcoming your fear. And you can see that I'm human as well. And I'm trying to go through the same exact thing. So for anyone listening that is not, of faith, or doesn't know if they are of faith and they're still wondering, I want you to listen to what I just said, is that doesn't matter if you're godly or not, you're still my audience, and I'm trying to help you in any way I can. I am not perfect, and I am human as well. So when you sit there and you think, oh, well, this person, I know he's a follower of the faith, he must be perfect. We're not perfect. We're not perfect at all. We still have the same exact issues that every other man has in this world. People of the Christian faith still deal with alcoholism. People of the Christian faith deal with pornography. Christians still have, there's some Christians out there that get addicted to drugs or lust or commit adultery. So we are all human. That's one of the things I have written down on the website is it doesn't matter if you're Christian or non-Christian or a believer or a non-believer, whatever. At the end of the day, we're all still men that are trying to better ourselves. I just elect my higher power to be God. So that's what a lot of this podcast is based around. But that doesn't mean any of you are wrong for not doing it. And I encourage you to keep listening to this podcast and the episodes that come later of this one so you can learn more. And this is where I reiterate Joshua 1:9. God will always be with you. Wherever you go, your Lord and your God will be with you. So don't be afraid. Don't be discouraged. Don't be afraid of what the people have to say about you or what they're going to say about what you're doing or trying to do. Let them. There's nothing for you to worry about except God, yourself, your family, and your audience of who you're trying to reach out to and what you're doing. And on top of all of that, with any decision we make, at some point there's going to be, a negative or a bad experience that we have to face. And that's life. So let's say you decide to start a business. At some point you will hit hard times or you will have to make a tough decision like letting go of somebody that's out of your comfort zone when that causes you pain and something you didn't want to have to face. Well, God's there. He's the one that's going to guide you through that hard time and guide you through that pain. So when we talk about pain, that leads me into the next point of this discussion, which was how does fear and how do the doubters, those that are saying things about you, how are they related? What do they have in common? So the first one would be the effects they both cause could be endless, really. But to mention a few, for instance, pain and worry and anxiety, you continuously fear something or you continuously worry about what other people are saying. All the things that could happen to you as a person, they're endless. But those little things of pain and worry, all that then snowballs on each other and then it causes unnecessary outcomes on other things in life. So, for instance, we'll say depression. And I know you think, wow, depression, that's a little much. But if you allow a fear of something or someone, or if you allow the words of someone doubting you or doubting a decision you make to really deeply enter your core beliefs, then depression will eventually overtake you. And a lot of that will then lead to second guessing. You may think that, like I said, it sounds a little much, but if you allow the fear or other words to consistently overtake, every view that you have in life, your masculinity at that point is lessened and depression will follow. There's no getting around that. Another one is anger. And the anger towards others, could be coworkers, significant others, friends, loved ones. I mean, that really doesn't matter who it's to. It's going to happen because at some point, the buildup inside you is just going to start to release on different avenues. If you're worried so much about all these people are saying it's going to affect how you do something, and then when that affects how you do something, it's not how you should be doing it, you're just going to keep that inside, and it's going to build up and build up. Or if you're trying to overcome this fear, and you have to overcome it, but you just can't, it's going to keep building up to eventually there's got to be someone to take it out on. And we all know that's probably going to be a loved one because those are the people that we most easily take things out on. And also at that point, the fear and the other person who was, talking about you or trying to say things about what you've done, they've ultimately accomplished their goal. People who see results from their actions continue to do that action. So if you have someone that's continuously saying things about, something you're doing and they see that it's affecting you, they see that you're giving in to what's going on, they're going to keep doing it. So you have to realize that you can't give these people the light of day. You just have to focus on what you're doing and the fact that God has your back and He will guide you down the right path. He will take you away from all that. You don't have to worry about it. So another part is, worrying about what other people think ultimately becomes a fear. We're sitting here talking about overcoming a fear. Well, that will become a fear if you continuously allow it to bother you. It does no good to gain more fears while you're trying to eliminate others. There's no progression with your internal strength at that point. It decreases. You have to work on then overcoming another fear, and it's just an added stressor. So you're back to square one. Always remember, a lot of times, those who doubt you are also afraid to do what you're trying to accomplish. And that's okay. Ideas are a dime a dozen, and we all know that. Those who elect to pursue that idea are the bigger person. don't worry about making your decision and what other people are going to say. The podcast is a prime example, and I just told you about that earlier. So, how to overcome a fear. So, I've kind of broken this down into 4 steps that I think when I sat down and thought about it are the ones that would work the best. It's just 4 pretty simple steps. So, the first step, I know this kind of sounds cliche, but just take a second and breathe. Don't be impulsive with your self deprecation. And what I mean by that is don't initially and immediately, right off the jump, act impulsively and start doubting yourself and downing yourself. Breathe and take a second. And if you don't, your head is just going to start to wander at that point, and you'll just end up defeating yourself before you even start to try to overcome that fear. So just step back, breathe, and at that point, figure out what the root cause is of that fear. Why did it become a fear in the first place? For example, is your fear public speaking, let's say? Because that's a big fear to a lot of people. Many people do not like speaking in public and in front of people. So if that is, why is that a fear? Did something when you were younger growing up, did that cause it? Or just do you get nervous and stumble over your words? Or do your palms start to sweat and your head starts to sweat and you're worried about what people seeing you? Or are you uncomfortable with certain topics? All these things. There's something that is a root cause to each fear, and you have to figure out what that is, because you can't go in and try to fix what you don't know. So at that point, the next step would be you have to face your fear head on, and you got to push through it. There's no getting around that. You'll never overcome a fear by just running away. For instance, I'll use rappelling in the fire service as this example. Anytime a fire recruit goes through the fire academy, they have to rappel. So in rappelling, is when you're lowering yourself down. You're not being lowered. You're actually using the rappelling device and you're descending, whatever height the height is. So for us, when you go through the fire academy, we have what's called the tower. And the tower is about, I think, 6 stories high. So you're about 60 feet from the top and you have to rappel down that. So that is a fear of almost every single person's when they do it. There's a few people when they come in that really don't have a fear of heights. If if you know what you're doing, I get it. A healthy fear is a good fear. I've rappelled and been lowered down things that are 100, 200 feet tall. Being in the Special Operations Command of the Fire Service, we do, extensive rope training and technical rope rescue, that stuff. So I get it. There's some things that are super high out there, but you have to have a healthy fear and respect it. But there are also others that come in the fire service that they have no training and they've never done these things before. So when you put them at 60 feet and you give them the rope, this descender, this figure 8, and you say, hey, rappel yourself down, that is a humongous fear to these people. So unless you face the fear head on and you just push through it, you're never going to overcome that. And the only way to do that is go on rope and rappel yourself down. You push through it and you face the fear. So to master it and to say that you have overcome this fear is you have to continuously practice. You have to face it more often. So that comes down to personal drive as well. If you really want to eliminate your fear, you have to want to do it. So another example of that would be like if someone's trying to quit a nicotine addiction. You typically don't see too many people quitting cigarettes or chewing tobacco or whatever when they don't want to do it. You have to want to do something in order to get it done. So I know those steps sound kind of cliche or whatever, but they're just quick and to the point. And if you actually do them and apply them to a fear, if you sit back and think about some fears you've had in the past and how you overcame them, if you plug those 4 steps in, I guarantee you they are somewhere in the process of how you overcame it. And they're probably close to being in that order, if not in that exact order. So, step 1, just breathe, brothers. I guarantee you that will help you so much if you just relax for a second and do not act impulsively. Second step, figure out what that root cause is. You can't address a problem if you do not know it. Your third step is you got to face it. Head on, face the bull, and push through it. And the fourth one is you just got to practice. You have to face that fear more often. So that wraps up some of the things that I wanted to talk to you guys about today. I think this was a powerful episode, and I think it had some good points in it and some good takeaways. I really hope you guys listening to this, you can apply it to a fear that you're trying to overcome right now. And this podcast, for example, as I told you earlier, is going to be a ongoing fear. It's always going to be a fear in the back of my mind, but I have finally overcome it. It's taken me a couple months of having this idea up until now. I finally have followed through with it. So it's always a fear, but I've just overcame it and I'm willing to push through it now. So I'm not too worried about what else is going to say. I'm more focused on the audience, you guys, and how I can help you and how we can grow together as men. So, like I said at the beginning, if you guys could subscribe to the podcast, we are on Apple now. If you could rate and review it, that is huge because the more you do that, the more I can reach other men. When they search it, they can see it, they can listen to this podcast. So, also if you're not on the Apple, you can follow it on Spotify or Google, Stitcher, TuneIn, all that, like I said at the beginning. And all this is on the website. I'd like to tell you guys now while you're listening so it's fresh in your head. Another part is join the Facebook group. It's a closed group. Just search up Brothers of Marital Facebook, get into the group, and start engaging. Talk with people, just throw out a discussion, see what people have to say. If you have any questions or if you have something that's going on in your life that you want some input on, just throw it on there. It doesn't matter who you are. I'm not here to judge. I'm here to help. And if it's something I've gone through before, we can gladly talk it out and I'll give you the different perspectives on it and how, other than how you view it. Because that is the plus side to these podcasts and we all know that. You can get a different outlook on something or a different view, and that can help you make decisions. It has done that for me multiple times in the past. But lastly, bookmark the website and just follow us on it. I'm always posting stuff on there and doing things and what's going on. So really appreciate you guys stopping by and listening to the podcast today. It's got some good material in it that I think could be really beneficial to you all, and I hope it is. I hope it hits home on a couple maybe issues that you're working with, and I look forward to talking with you guys pretty soon.